Hi, welcome to today's partner-hosted workshop, Measuring Success with Web Analytics. My name is Jessie, and I'm live from Mountain View, California. I wanted to start off by giving a warm welcome to the 10 partners we know are hosting today. We have partners in Knoxville, Tennessee, Boise, Idaho, Skokie, Illinois, Rockville, Maryland, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Bellevue, Washington, Colorado Springs, Colorado, LaGrange, Kentucky, and both Ontario and Corona, California. Thank you for hosting today's workshop, and welcome. Before I get started and kick it over to Stasia, I wanted to point out two key features. Today, we are going to be hosting a 45-minute presentation. Afterwards, we do encourage that you write down notes and any questions or concerns that you may have, and hand those to your partner host, and they'll be able to answer those for you. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and kick it off to Stasia.
Thanks, Jessie. Can everybody hear me okay out there on the internet? My name is Stasia. I'm here from Nashville, Tennessee, and thank you so much, partners and all of the businesses out there, for joining us today. Today's presentation is going to be a little bit about Google Analytics, and specifically about how you can use it to set goals for your business. A lot of folks have heard of Google Analytics. Many of you have used it, but one of the things that I have seen over the years working with businesses is that many of them actually haven't set it up in a way to make it work for their business. So today's presentation is going to give you just a taste, just an overview of perhaps the most important way to actually use analytics to help measure your business success. So I am going to show this presentation here. We can stop looking at me for a minute, and we will go and look at the presentation today. So it is called Setting Goals with Analytics, and today I'm going to be talking about a few different areas. First will be an introduction to what analytics is and goals in general. Then I'll talk about what should actually be tracked on your website, what you can track, what makes sense to track. Then we'll talk about how to actually go into the software, and I'll show you the basics of creating goals within the software. And then we'll close off by talking about the resources. The reality is Google Analytics could be a 3-day, full-day class here, and so we have a fairly limited amount of time, in fact 45 minutes, to go over all of the different pieces of the software. So I'm just going to focus on this one little piece, which will be setting goals. So what exactly makes Google Analytics so powerful anyway? What's the big deal about it? So there are plenty of answers to the questions, but the one thing that's really, really important to get across to everybody in the audience, that analytics is no longer about counting hits. You guys remember that on websites where you would see a hit counter and you'd be so proud when you had, I have 1,000 hits on this web page. Well, in today's business world with the web, it doesn't really make any, it's not a useful number for you anymore. What we're looking at now is ways to take the software and to use it to measure business goals, basically the outcomes that are going to drive the bottom line for your business or your clients' businesses. And until you're doing this, you're not really using Google Analytics at all. You're just counting activity that happens on your site. Now, I'll bet that there are lots of folks out there who are listening to today's class that don't have e-commerce on their websites. And so you may be a bit skeptical, thinking, well, how can I use Google Analytics and goals to help my business if I'm not selling directly online? Well, it's not necessarily just about e-commerce. Now, that's a big one, but basically every time somebody goes to your site, you should be thinking about, well, what is it that I want them to do there? What is it that I want to accomplish? And that's not just selling stuff. That can be getting people to call a phone number or to download a form or something that is of use to your business. And so we're going to talk about how you can use Google Analytics to measure those actions, whether you are e-commerce or not. So if you get nothing else out of today's class, the one most important point that I'd like to get across is that the difference between counting and measuring is Google Analytics, and that's what we're focused on today, actually measuring business outcomes using this piece of software. Okay, so what exactly is Google Analytics? It is a free, powerful piece of software. I used to use it back in the 1990s when it was a piece of software called Urchin. And we would set this up for our clients, and we use it for our monthly status reports to report back to clients about what had happened on the site. Google bought the software, and then they made it completely free. And it's not a stripped-down version of the software. It's extremely powerful, and many of businesses, the largest and the smallest around the world, use it today to understand visitor behavior on their site. This data, which is called web analytics data, can help you get a better understanding about the strengths and the weaknesses of your site. Basically, what people are looking at and where you might want to focus your business efforts. And you can see where things are working, where things might are not working as well, and then use that to base your decisions about what you're going to be doing on your site next. If you hear me refer to it as GA, that is what we often, people in the industry call it for short, but it is Google Analytics. You can learn more about this if you want to, get more information about the history and all the capabilities that it can do. I mean, again, it could be 3 days of class, but basically you would start at google.com/analytics. Now, with any of Google's products, you want to sign in with the account that you're already using to manage your business stuff. So, for example, let's say you have a Gmail address set up for your business. You would probably want to use that same Gmail address to go in and set up Google Analytics, because then they would be connected with that Google sign-in. And the same would hold true if you used Google AdWords. AdWords is Google's advertising platform, and one other great advantage is that Google Analytics ties into it very, very well. So basically, you can use your analytics reports to measure your return on investment in AdWords, and you'll really be able to see whether or not advertising on Google makes sense for your business, and quite often you will see that it does. Okay, so again, it's free, but it's powerful. Some of the things that you'll see inside Google Analytics are dashboards, which show you the most important information that's happening on your site at a quick glance. There's real-time data, so you can actually see what's happening in your campaigns today. You can do advanced segmentation, which means you can slice and dice your data to find really unique and powerful pieces of information, insights into what's happening on your website. You can do custom reports. You can analyze a visitor's path through the website. Again, there are a huge number of things that you can do with analytics, but today we're just going to focus on one small piece. So we're going to talk about goals, and I guess we'll start by defining what I mean by that. So again, it's not about counting, it's about measuring. So a goal in this context is going to represent a completed activity. And in online marketing, we call that a conversion. So typically, a conversion would be on an e-commerce site, where you would come to a website and you would see this widget that you wanted to buy, and then you would add it to your cart, hand over your credit card information, and complete the checkout, and you're done. So that's a very simple, clear-cut way to measure a conversion. But there are lots of businesses probably out there right now who don't have e-commerce or don't have e-commerce yet on their websites. So you have to start thinking beyond just that purchase online. So what does constitute a success for your business online? And that could be a sign up for an email newsletter. That could be the amount of time that a visitor spent on your website. It could be a key action on your site. So one of the first challenges is to start thinking about all of the things that a visitor can do and that you want a visitor to do on your website, and make a list of that. And that's going to help you on this process of starting to set up goals for your site. Okay, so let's take a look at the next slide. And goals must be defined. So we need to talk about how you track conversions inside Google Analytics. So first of all, in order to make this work, you have to set this up separately. When you go through Google Analytics and you go through the google.com/analytics process, and you'll basically be setting up a piece of tracking code on each of the pages of your website. That's the first step. We're not covering that in today's class. That's if you want to learn more, you can do it. It's actually fairly clear-cut to do that at the website. But basically, you're going to be tagging all of the pages on the website that you want to track, which should be all of the pages on your website. Now, a goal is going to be set up separately on top of that. And you do that in order to track the number of conversions. Remember, those conversions are the measures of success that happened on your website. Once you do that, you can actually start to see information like your conversion rate and cost per conversion. And then you can look on top of that and see which marketing campaigns are actually generating the most conversions for your business. So for example, you may be advertising on three different search engines, and then you could actually use the data from the reports to see which one was giving you the most conversions at the best price. Maybe you're trying an email marketing campaign. You could actually track that. You can even track offline campaigns. So if you were running a newspaper ad or a radio ad with trackable URLs, you could use that as well. The point that I'm getting across here, though, is that you actually have to set that up within Google Analytics to know what it is that you're trying to measure with that goal. There are three basic ways to do it. The first is called a URL-based goal, and that's when a specific web page indicates that the goal has been achieved. So for example, if the goal is to get someone to sign up for an email newsletter, as soon as they hit the thank you for signing up page, then you know that they've signed up, and that's a URL-based goal. They hit that thank you page. Another thing that you could track is called an in-page event. And an in-page event is not when you hit a particular web page, when you arrive at that page. It's when a website visitor takes a particular action within a page. So for example, it might be that you have a video embedded on your web page and you want to measure success by how often people actually play the video on your website. Or it could be that you have a PDF form that you want people to download. You can actually track the downloads of those PDFs. You can track social media shares and follows and all that kind of stuff. And the third way is the traditional way, which is e-commerce. So anyway, those are the three types of different events. And you actually, three types of conversions, and that's the way that you have to define them within Google Analytics. So let's talk about defining goals again. This is sort of my theme for today's class. If you don't do this, if you don't define your goals to measure success, then Google Analytics really isn't going to do a whole lot for you. You'll get some interesting information. You'll see how many people are coming to your site and what pages they're looking at, but you really won't be able to tell if the purpose of your website is actually is happening, the reason that you want people to come to your site. You need to define those goals. Now, let's break it down a little bit more. So there are two types of goals, and your business at the end of the day, let's say that you sell something, and whether you sell that online or you sell that in a brick and mortar store or you sell it by actually coming out to a customer's house and completing a project for them. That might be the very, very end goal, and we call that the macro goal. That's the primary objective of your website, of your business in this case. And so you would certainly want to track that. So maybe it would be that, okay, if I have something, I'm selling something directly online, then I'm going to count a goal if I make that sale. But we also need to kind of take a step back and think about visitor behavior. Many, many people come to a website and interact with the content on that site, in fact, many times in many cases before they actually complete that macro conversion. And this is what we call a micro conversion. And a micro conversion, or a secondary activity, they can cumulatively make that larger macro conversion happen, that sale. So let's just say that your goal is to get someone to buy something on your site. You could track people who fill out a request for information form, people who look at a video, a how-to video, people who spend a certain amount of time looking at particular pages on your site. All of these things, all of these smaller measures of success that eventually lead to the big sale can also be tracked using Google Analytics. So when you're making your list, don't think of just the very, very last step. Think about all of the little steps that can happen on your website that can make that conversion. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what should actually be tracked. And we will talk about what kinds of goals that you can track, and then I will walk through the process of actually setting up a goal within Google Analytics. All right, so start by asking yourself, what do you want your visitors to do on your website? So I've been working with clients for about 18 years on different websites, and one very common sort of stumbling block when we talked about analytics, whether I'm, for any type of website, is that the client would say, well, I don't sell anything directly on my website, so I don't need this. I don't need to set up goals. I just want to see the number of people coming to my site. And that's maybe true. They may not sell something directly on the site, but there are lots and lots of goals that every business, every organization can have on their website that's of value to your business or organization, even if you don't have e-commerce. So that could be leads or social follows or newsletter signups or FAQs or the number of page views or video views. Every action that a person takes on your website has some sort of value to your business, or it should have some sort of value to your business. So here's what I ask the clients that I work with. I say, all right, well, let's take a look at your website. And they say, well, why did you put that there? What is the purpose for this web page or this element of this web page? And then the answer is going to start with something like, well, because I wanted people to come and do this. And if that's the case, if that's what you wanted from that page, then that means that you have a potential goal there to set up and track within Google Analytics. Okay, so what kinds of things can you actually track within Google Analytics? We'll get into a little bit of the organization of analytics in a second, but the primary areas that you can track within GA are revenue. So we'll use that as the easiest example, and that is when someone places an online order. The second one would be acquisition, and an example of an acquisition goal would be someone created an online account. Basically, you got them into the pipeline as a potential customer. Then we have inquiry, which is when someone submitted a form or in some way used the website to get in touch with you. And then we have engagement. Engagement is when people are interacting with the content and the elements on your website. So one easy example is when someone actually signs up for an email newsletter. So start again by thinking about what it is that you want people to do on your website. Then take that list, and then from that start listing out potential goals, both the macro goals and the micro goals, and then you can start setting them up. We'll talk about Google Analytics structure, but basically you have the capability to set up 20 goals for every view within Google Analytics. Okay, so here are the goal types. Okay. For the first type, we'll talk about destination goals. And this is when somebody lands on a specific page, that specific location. The second type of goal is duration. And that's when a session, when an individual interaction with your site lasts a specific minimum amount of time. So let's just say I want to count a conversion when someone spends a minimum of 10 minutes on my website. You can also track pages and screens per session. And so that would be that the visitor came and looked at a minimum number of pages or screens on your site. And the fourth type is called an event. An event is when you are actually defining an action as a goal. Somebody took this action on your website, and that will trigger the tracking of a goal. So the goal type is basically going to describe whatever action it is that you're measuring. Now, a little bit step back about Google Analytics organization. Again, I'm not going to get into the very, very basics of Google Analytics, but just to kind of help you understand the structure. For every one of you, you have an account, and that's your username and password that gets you into Google Analytics. Then within Google Analytics, you can have a specific property, and property has any of the data that you collect. And what it does, within a property, you can actually say, I am going to set up a specific view of this data. And so now a view is a subset of all of the data that's coming into a property. So let's just try to, I think an example might be helpful here. So here's my account, and that's where I sign in with my username and password to get into Google Analytics. And then let's just say I have 4 different websites. So I could set up each of those websites as a separate property. And then within the view, I can say, all right, I want to see a specific view that's going to look just at this area of my business, these pages that are related to this this division of my business. So you don't have to set it up. There is going to be one default view that looks at everything that happens on your site. But if it makes business sense for you to really start looking at smaller segments of data within your Google Analytics account, you can set those up as those separate views within your account. Okay, let's take a look at the next slide. And oh yes, it's my example site. So I really, really wish that I had been smart enough to actually create a bakery. So I've been working with this team at Google for about the last 4 years. And at the very start of it, we needed to create a website that we would use for different examples. If you didn't catch it, my name is Stasia, and our example site is Stasia's Bakery. In fact, in reality, I can't bake at all. I can bake a little bit. I can like take those packets of the Duncan Hines and dunk it in a bowl and then make up a bag of cookies really quick, but I can't make a nice looking cake to save my life. But we're going to pretend I do, and the example website is at www.stasiasbakery.com. And so we're going to use that site as an example to look at a few different ways that we could actually define goals that we could track on this site for this business. Okay. I won't make you all do this exercise right now, but if you have time at the sessions that you're at now, whether later or you need to write down to pay attention, if you need to keep your hands moving, one thing that you can be thinking about is making that list of goals. And you can do that for your own business. But if I was going to be starting this for me, I would make a list of what, how, and why. What is it that I'm going to track? How am I going to do it? And why am I going to do it? Because again, you can think about all of the different pages and why I put this piece of content there. But you also need to kind of rein it in a little bit because you want to think, well, is this an important step for my business goals? And if it isn't, why not? Because every part of your website should in some way support your overarching business goals. Okay, so let's now actually jump right into it, and I will show you the ways to actually create goals within Google Analytics. Now this is assuming, again, that you have successfully set up your account, you've got all that in, you've got your tracking code in. Now again, this is separate on top of the actual tracking code. The tracking code is going to gather all of the data of visitor activity, visitor behavior on your website. Now goals are going to show specific actions that those visitors took within those pages to show you whether or not your website is working for you. So I am going to show you how to set up a goal for duration. I'm going to show you how to set up a goal for page views or screen views. I'm going to show you how to set up a goal for a destination reached. And then fourth, I'll show you how to set up a goal for a completed event. Okay. So here's how we would start. I've mentioned before where you get there, google.com/analytics, but you'd go to the page and you would click on sign in at the top, sign in with the username and password that's associated with your account, and then go over to the property that you're working with. Now, again, a little reminder, this is not going to work until you've actually set up Google Analytics. You need to do that to tag your pages. And so every page on your site, including your goal pages, must be tagged with the Google Analytics tracking code. If the code isn't there, Google Analytics can't see the page. It can't monitor activity on the page and can't track the goal. Now, another question that you might get would be, or that I get would be, well, can I just put it on the pages that have to do with my goals? You can, but really you want to have this tagging code on every single page of the site, because that's going to give you a more holistic view about what's happening on your site, where people are looking at relative to other pages. And you may think that a page doesn't actually contribute to a goal, but it very well might. Excuse me one second, I'm going to get a little drink of water. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and it is allergy season right now, or I think it is. Okay, now I can speak again. So let's take a look at where you would see the goals. So this is showing you a screenshot of how Google Analytics might be organized. And so you can see I'm in my account. And then you can see the property view. in the center, and then on the right you can see the different views. And so from here you would actually go in and you would click on the link labeled goals, and that's where you would start the process of setting them up within Google Analytics. Okay, to create the new goal, look for the big red button that says plus new goal. It's pretty straightforward to actually set it up. The hardest part, in my opinion, is to actually do all of the preparation work and to decide at the forefront, well, what is it that I want to actually track? What do I want to do that on the site? Then, basically, you're going to be doing this last. You'll have already defined all of the things, all of the goals that you're interested in tracking on the website. And then you're at that last step where you're setting that up within the software. So you start by clicking plus new goal. And then you will see a fairly simple, we call it a wizard, but it's a step-by-step process that walks you through creating that goal. Now, you'll see within Google Analytics that there are many predefined templates. And take a look at that list first, because the templates may cover exactly what it is that you're trying to track. And you can see in this screenshot that they're broken down into those categories that I mentioned: revenue, acquisition, inquiry, and engagement. But you can also create a custom one if you don't see anything that perfectly matches your goals. So let's assume that you are going to, let's start really easy. Let's say that we're going to start with measuring time on a website. It doesn't require any special steps on your part. All it means is that you're going to measure visitor engagement, meaning how long did this person spend on my website. And maybe that's because the most important part of your organization or your business is to help share information, and so you want to see collectively how much time on average people are actually spending on your site, and you've set a goal where I want people to be here for at least 10 minutes or something like that, whatever makes sense for you. Okay, so the next step is going to be to give your goal a name. And so when you're giving your goals names, I don't want to say it's a terrible name, but it is a terrible name to name your goal number 1. Because then what happens if you end up setting 30 goals for this particular site, and then at the end of it you're like, well, I'm interested in looking at the reports for how many people filled out my contact form. And you probably, I know I'm not smart enough to remember that that is goal number 16. So it's a good idea to take all of the goals and name it in a memorable way that helps you quickly understand what the resulting reports would be about. So let's say, for example, that we are going to track, we said 10 minutes, right? So we want a visitor to spend a minimum of 10 minutes on the website. So I'll name this goal 10 minutes, pretty clear cut, right? So now we're going to choose our goal type, and so you can see the types that it supports, and we're going to choose duration because that's what we're actually measuring here. Okay, so now you'll see this form that you will fill out, and we can see it's a custom goal. We've given it a description and a name, and now we're actually going to specify the duration where that visitor spent a minimum of 10 minutes and 0 seconds on the website. You also have the option to, hold on, I gotta say, I need to get my reading glasses if you wanted to. If this was an e-commerce website, you would also have the option to tie into an e-commerce value into the e-commerce system, but you can also assign a value to every particular goal. So if you had done the math, or you'd figured out that a visitor who spends a minimum of 10 minutes on my website, the value to my business is X dollars, you could actually assign that monetary value to the completion of that conversion, that goal. And that way you could really start measuring your return on investment using this software. Another thing, if you look at the bottom of the screenshot, you'll see a little blue link that says verify this goal. And if you click on that, it can actually show you, it can confirm that it's actually working, and it would show you, based on the last 7 days of data, how many conversions you would have had in your account if it had been set up. Google Analytics doesn't work backwards, so you can't set up a goal now and then see what happened last month or the quarter before that. It will really start as soon as you actually set it up. There can be a lag in the data as well, but you're not going to be able to measure conversions and goals going backwards. Okay, so that covers our first goal. It's pretty easy to do, so everyone could start there to sort of get some practice and warm up for Google Analytics. But let's talk about the second goal, which is the minimum number of pages viewed. Again, this is a nice one to start with because it doesn't require special steps, and it also measures engagement on your website. So go to your form, you hit plus new goal, and again you're going to hit custom. Now give it a name, and everybody out there, what's not a good name for the goal? Right? Not goal number 2. So you want to give it a name that helps people understand, or helps you understand, what it is that you're trying to measure on this website. And so in this case, again, we are measuring the number of pages or screens that this person actually viewed. So we could name it, they looked at, let's just say, a 5-page minimum. So now we would actually put in the parameters to track this goal, and that is going to be how many pages or screens did an individual visitor look at in that session. And so now it's a custom goal. We've given it a name and description of 5-page minimum, and now we're going to add in the details, which is step 3 in this screenshot. And now we're going to say, okay, this visitor viewed a number greater than 4 pages or screens in this session, which means 5 or more. And again, you can turn on the value, which it's an optional value if you want, and that's it. You hit create goal, and then it's going to start tracking how many times a visitor came to your site and then actually looked at the web page or actually looked at the screen on their mobile devices. So it's as simple as that. Everybody with me? So you're getting the hang of Google Analytics. We've now set up 2 goals without really having to take any other extra steps other than getting that initial tagging code onto our web pages so we can see what people are doing on our site. Okay, so let's get a little tiny bit more advanced here. This goal is going to be to actually track a destination URL. It's a URL-based goal, and let's use a form. Form is an easy one to start with. There can be a ton of forms on the site. It can be newsletter signups, contact forms, lead forms, anything that you would get on there. You're inviting people to give information, and then when they submit that information, you can track that as a goal completion. And that may be a macro or micro goal for your site, whatever makes sense for you. So this is an example of a very, very basic form that's on the site. And so it's an email newsletter sign up. A lot of times, if you're using commercial email marketing software, they'll give you the code that actually places it, that creates the form that goes on your site. But we're going to track when somebody actually gets to the congratulations, the page was submitted, the thank you page. Once somebody hits that thank you page, then we know that they have actually signed up, that they've filled out that form, and that's how we will track success in this particular instance. Okay. So here we go through the goal setup again, and take a look at all of the templates that are available. And oh look, on the very end we see one that says newsletter sign up. So what we can do is we can select that button. It's called the radio button, and then click next step. And then we'll give it a description. So again, we will call it something that will help us identify this in the reports. So let's start with newsletter sign up or email newsletter sign up, whatever helps you identify it within your reports. And now, again, for this type of goal, we're going to be tracking a destination, which is when a visitor ends up at a particular page. So the easiest option is to specify the thank you page here. One note to people here in the audience who are listening, one very important thing to remember is that you want this page that they end up on to definitely mean they've done whatever it is that you wanted them to do. So basically, if the goal here is to get somebody to sign up for an email newsletter, you want to make sure that the tracking doesn't happen on a page that they could get to in a different way. So, because otherwise it's not a meaningful measurement. You want to make sure that the only way that someone would have ended up at this web page is by completing this action. One of the clients that I had been working with a long time ago, I figured it out pretty quickly. He went into his reports and it was showing 100% conversion rate. We couldn't figure out what was going on until we realized that we had actually put the tracking code, his developers had put the tracking code on the home page of the site. And so every time somebody got to the site, that would count as a completed goal. That's not a meaningful goal for you. You want someone to actually go through some sort of step, some sort of process to end up here at a particular destination. Okay, so we click the next step button, and now once again we will go in and we will review what we put in. So we have the type of goal, we have the name, the description. You're going to put in the URL, and you have a few different options. You can have the URL is equal to, the URL contains. So depending on how your web pages are constructed, whether it's a content management system, you can look at the different options, but just make sure that the destination is only going to the web page. That means that someone actually completed that action. And again, you can add an optional value. You can also have a funnel on, and a funnel is really interesting. The funnel will actually show you the path that the visitor took through the website to get there, which helps you get into the visitor mindset. Well, what did they actually do? How did they progress through the website to end up at this page? It's an optional feature, and again, you'd have to have all of those web pages tagged on your website, which hopefully you did anyway. But that will give you another really valuable report and insight into visitor behavior on your site. Okay, so now we've covered 3 different types of events. Take one more glass of water. Hold on. I know Knoxville's out there. How's allergy season in Knoxville, Tennessee? We just got some rain here in Nashville. I thought it would have been better. Okay, let's talk about goal number 4, which is tracking an event. Okay, so tracking an event is the 4th type that we're going to cover today. It is the most advanced. I'm going to try to explain this as simply as I can. So the things that we've talked about so far have been very sort of separate buckets that have happened. I spent X amount of time on the site, or I looked at X number of pages, or I went to this specific page. Now, tracking an event is different because now someone could get to that page. I mean, just visiting that page might be considered a conversion, a goal completed. But now we're actually going to measure an interaction on that page. So, for example, if I went to a page and I saw a video embedded there, I would see in my reports that I got to the web page, but now I can actually see a report that says I got to the page and I did this when I got there. And you can use that to measure success. So let me show you a quick example about how you can use Google Analytics to track video plays. So here we are at Stasia's Bakery in my fake bakery website, and I have a video, and that's not me because I can't bake anything. And now I'm going to show you how to actually set up the tracking within Google Analytics. We're going to try to define an event, and the event would be someone came and played that video on the site. Now, when you are creating an event, there are a few steps that you have to follow. First of all, make sure that you have the tracking code on your website. I've said that a few times, but that needs to happen. Then what you're going to do is you're actually going to define the event. And so what you'll be doing is you'll be putting another piece of code on your site, and you are going to be putting in some pieces of information that are associated with this event. And the first one, which is required, is a category. And so, for example, here the category might be video or tutorial or something that describes the overarching category of what you're tracking, what you want them to do. Now, within the category, you're also going to define an action, and the actions are unique to each category, and they're used to define that interaction. So if the category is video, the action might be play. And then a label, which is optional, can give you additional information, which we call a dimension, to the data. So now we have the category of video, the action of play, and the label how to decorate a cake or how to bake a cake or whatever your video is about. And so those pieces of information are required to actually go ahead and set up the tracking within your site. Okay, so here's an example. And if you looked at the code here, I'm just showing you of what it would look like. So the link here that we're tracking is somebody would click on the link to play the video. And if we look at the items in orange, we can see how I've implemented all of those different pieces. Remember, we've got category, action, and then the label. So we can see the URL, or the HTML rather, for the link, which is ahref. And when someone plays this video, we want to track this event in Google Analytics. And the video category, or the category, is video. And then the action is play. And then the third one is how to decorate a cake. And so if somebody actually went ahead and clicked on that link, basically initiated that action on that web page, all of those tracking parameters that we put into that URL, into that link, that's actually going to help Google Analytics say, aha, look, somebody's on this web page and they clicked on that link, and we know that because they did that, they're playing a video about decorating the cake, so we're going to make a note of that and show that in this person's Google Analytics reports. Okay, I recognize that for some people, especially if anyone in the audience hasn't used this before, hasn't used HTML, is not a programmer, you're looking at this and it looks like a language that you don't know, because it is. So this might be a case where, as a business owner, you take a step back and you say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a list of all of the things that, from a business perspective, I want to track. I want to track when people come to this web page and do this thing, but I'm not quite comfortable setting it up. Then you can work with a programmer, a developer, anyone who's working with building sites typically can help you with these pieces, because it's actually not, in many cases, this is something that can be relatively simple to set up. But then they can go and say, all right, based on the business rules that you define as the business owner, we can take that next step. And all of this is documented online. There's actually some really great documentation, and the URL is at the bottom of this presentation. It's developers.google.com/analytics/devguides. But you can also just do a search for it on Google and you'll get there. Okay, so now here we are, we're back at so we haven't finished setting up our event. So now we have tagged that web page, remember that link, with all of the ways that we're telling Google Analytics, okay, we want to track when somebody clicks on this link to play the video. You're going to select custom, which is that last link at the bottom. Whoops, need to go forward for y'all to see it, right? I'm sorry about that. I'm working on two computers, so I'm looking at one and pressing forward with another. So here you click on custom at the bottom. And now you're going to give, again, just like we've been doing, you're going to give your video a name. We've watched the video, and we are going to track an event type, and then click Next Step. Okay, and now what you will do is under the event conditions, that's where you're going to match the information that you put on the web page. So remember, we added some special code to the link that means that somebody clicked to watch the video. Now within Google Analytics, we're going to say, okay, the category is video, the action is play, the label is how to, and the value is 1. So every time somebody clicks a link or takes an action that is labeled with videos, play, and how to, we're going to count that as a conversion in this particular site. It's going to count as a goal and be recorded within your Google Analytics account and your reports. Okay, everybody with me? I know that's a little bit complicated. If this is not something you want to get into, again, just figure out what it is from a business perspective you want to track. Try to kind of break it down and like how you're going to organize it. Well, I want to track my videos, or I want to track people who download these PDFs, or I want to track people who, whatever action it is that you're asking them to take, and then you can work with your development team to actually get that set up. And Incidentally, if you are using e-commerce, which is sort of, the granddaddy of tracking, you can tie it into your e-commerce system, and it will track your transactional data. Now, it doesn't actually manage your e-commerce store. That's a completely separate piece of software. But this can actually complement that software by showing you information about how it interacts with all of the content on your website. So you can track things like your online orders. Okay, so the thing about Google Analytics is that there are a ton of resources out there. I'm at 446. Jesse is going to hop on any second and say, "You're done, it's time to stop talking." But to close it up, I just wanted to show you some resources that you can look at to learn more about Google Analytics. The first place to start is the Analytics Help Center. That's support.google.com/analytics. And 9 times out of 10, you will find the answer to your question there in the Help Center. If you are using Google+, and I hope you all are, you can also follow Google Analytics there. And YouTube has a fantastic channel. You can go to youtube.com/user/Google Analytics, where you can see lots of tutorials that'll walk you through the process and show you where to click. Because if you're just getting started, it can feel a little bit overwhelming navigating through this until you get a hang of it. But if you do well with visuals, go and check out the YouTube channel. If you want to learn more about it, there's also the Analytics Academy, and that gives you a chance to go through different types of courses and test your knowledge on Google Analytics. If you want to keep up to date with things that change, and just like anything online, anything with Google, it changes a lot. So you can follow things that are happening at analytics.blogspot.com. And again, if you are a developer or you're working with a developer or you want to try it out, you can get all of the information, all the implementation information at the developer's website, which is developers.google.com/analytics. Okay, and with that, thank you guys so much. I only ran 2 minutes over time today. Hope you could bear with me through my slightly froggy voice. But I think I'm going to pass this back to Mountain View, and so we can open it up for any Q&A. I just wanted to also say thank you. I really appreciate you spending your afternoon with me learning a little bit about Google Analytics and how you can use it to set goals to measure business success. All right, thanks, and I'm out from Nashville, Tennessee.